It is Friday, July 26, 2024. This is another edition of Baseball Today presented to you by Booking.com. Booking.yeah. That is my man, Trevor Plouffe. I am Chris Rose, producer Dan, intern Tommy along for the ride as well. As you can see, we are both on the road, and you are still catching pens or pencils even away from home. You will never lose that skill.
I love doing it. I know it seems like silly because I do it every single episode. It just like became part of the show, but it's just because I love to, I love to play catch, Chris, no matter with a pen, a ball, whatever it is, man.
Do you want to share what happened at dinner last night or no?
I mean, we can. I had a great dinner out here in Birmingham outside of Detroit. And during the dinner, a woman started choking. A guy got up, gave her the Heimlich. I thought about getting up and doing it. This guy kind of beat me to the punch, but I guess tip of the cap to that guy.
Hell yes.
She ended up spitting some stuff out and she was okay. The funny part about this whole dinner was she had like a friend at the table who the entire time while this was going on, while her friend was getting the Heimlich, she just kept eating. I didn't get it.
That's impossible.
She didn't break from her dinner, dude. I couldn't believe it, but that's what happened. Everyone's okay, by the way.
Thank God. All right, great job by the dude who saved her, obviously. I'm curious, if you're a restaurant and somebody is choking on your food, do you give them a complimentary dinner? How's that work?
It's a good question. I mean, I don't think it's the restaurant's fault. Like, you got to choose your food, right?
Yeah, no, I mean, it's nobody's
maybe
fault.
This is a classy, nice place. They probably did. This is a well-renowned spot out here.
Got it. Well, we're thankful that she's okay. Great job by the unknown savior, whoever that was. If you're watching today, you can let us know in the chat, I suppose. Good work. Actually, food is going to start off our little tip of the cap because the Royals have named a sandwich after our buddy Vinny Pasquantino. It's called the Pasquich. It consists of shaved Italian beef topped with 2 slices of provolone cheese, 2 strips of bacon, crispy golden brown hash brown patties, and what is this? Giardiniera aioli. All served on a butter.
Aioli. Let's go, man.
Okay. Hey, dude, I'm sorry. I just eat the stuff. I don't know how to say it. That's my fault. And it's served on a buttered and grilled brioche bun. And you know what? Of course, Vinny had to shoot a promo with the Pasquatch.
Vinny's Italian beef Pasquich. It's like us. Part Italian, part Pasquatch. Beefy and Italian. You want to feed me? I don't think that'll work.
Oh, God. Dude, are the guys in the clubhouse going to kill him?
No, I think it's great. I mean, that's first of all, I had a rant about that ridiculous other sandwich they were serving, I believe also in Kansas City. Yes. So somebody was like, don't show Trevor Plouffe this on my Twitter. And I said, no, like this is an actual like regular sandwich, like a beef sandwich is a thing. I said, they put Fruit Loops on the thing. I'm out, but this looks delicious. So I'm all in on Vinny P's sandwich. I'm in. I would try that.
Yeah. I texted him yesterday. I said they should have a promo where every time you go deep at home, the Pasquatch should run out with this and serve it to you at home plate. He's like, yeah, I think you're onto something. So there you
like
go.
A little
Always
dip,
thinking,
dipping some jus there. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. All right. We're just a few days away from the trade deadline, and thankfully things are moving. We had AJ Puck, the left-handed reliever, go from Miami out to Arizona. Just early on Friday morning, James Paxton, who was DFA'd earlier this week by the Dodgers, is going back to Boston, giving them a little more rotation depth. But the big news happened on Thursday night when Seattle picked up Randy Arozarena for the 12th and 22nd ranked prospects in the Mariners organization. That is Aiden Smith and a pitcher, Brody Hopkins, also a player to be named later. So is Randy Arozarena going to be the thing that cures Seattle's ills? Because they have been sliding.
I love the move, number one. And when did this happen? Because I went to sleep and it hadn't happened yet. So it must have been super late night. But I love the move. I don't think it's the last one they make to upgrade that offense. But he is the perfect guy to slot in there. I think he's got like the attitude that maybe Seattle needs. And he's used to winning down there in Tampa, which is great. He's done it in the postseason every single time he's been there. He loves the big stage and he's been hot lately. I know the overall numbers don't look great, Chris, but if you even just go back to the beginning of July, 913 OPS, like he's turning things on. This is the kind of hitter he can be. He's going to slot right into, I'm assuming, the third or fourth spot in that lineup. He immediately becomes one of, if not the best hitter on the team. Like, this is a great move for Seattle. It's one that we've been hoping they would make for quite some time. So I love this move. I don't think they're done yet. They shouldn't be done yet, because they do have a very deep and good farm system they could draw from, not to mention some of the guys at the end of their pitching staff. Maybe they wanted to get rid of some of those guys. But I really believe like this is a window for Seattle. So go out and get the guys that you need. Randy Arozarena is a great start for them.
Not only that, he's got 2 years of control after this.
Yes.
So and we'll get to Tampa's side in just a second, but in terms of what Seattle has done, a 660 OPS as a team, that is the third worst in baseball. We've talked about this a bunch. They've lost a 10-game lead since the middle of June. But they're still much in contention, right? They're a game out in their division. They're 3.5 out in the wild card chase. To me, it's a no-brainer. We have no idea what these guys are going to turn into. We've always joked around that if Tampa calls you about making a trade, you better be very careful about picking up the phone. But this certainly makes sense every angle from Seattle. And you mentioned that his July numbers, Arozarena we're talking about here, are better. Over the last 41 games, he's got an OPS of 906. Beginning of the year was terrible. I mean, atrocious numbers. With everything being said, he's got, I believe, a 706 OPS, which currently ranks second on Seattle. Jeez.
That's not great. They need more help, Chris. I love this move, but they need more, especially with Julio out right now. They have a very, very enviable position, and that's the starting pitchers that they have. They have to go out there and supplement with some more offense.
Yeah, and let me correct myself. It is a 106 OPS plus. That's what ranks second on Seattle. Still pretty interesting. Okay, now if you're Tampa Bay, do you know that the Rays are a half game behind the Mariners in the wild card chase? So if you are a Rays fan, you wake up to this news on Friday morning. Are you pissed, or are you just saying this is how we do business?
I think a little bit of both. I think you're pissed that this is how you do business. I believe they just got like a new stadium proposal like pushed through, so we'll see how that goes. I know, Chris. I'm just saying. Like you want to eventually get to a point where because Randy Arozarena is going to make upwards of $10 to $12 million next year, they want to get rid of him and they want to capitalize on the 2+ years control that they have. Like you want to get to a point where, hey, we don't have to operate this way where our payroll is so low. But right now this is what it is. So I think you are mad about it, but you do expect it. And I think what you're really mad about is I think that they're going to start to trade some more guys. I don't think it's going to be just a Arozarena. I don't think it's going to be a complete fire sale, but if they're getting the right deals and I think this is what's happening. I think Tampa, number one, sees Randy as a guy whose salary is going to increase, and they want to get, some prospects back for him before it does, because they don't want to pay that. But I also think they're looking to capitalize on what everyone's calling a seller's market. So they're saying, you know what, look, we'll still give it a go this year, but we got to jump some teams. We haven't played particularly well. We've dealt with some injuries. I could see them trading 2 or 3 more lineup regulars. And then, I think if you're a Rays fan, you can really start to settle in and understand that the season's probably going to be a lost cause if they do that.
I interviewed Pete Fairbanks for the Rose Rotation back on Wednesday, and we spent a lot of time talking about this. I said, how do you deal with this as players in the organization? He goes, we understand it. Like nothing comes as a shock for us. So we kind of laugh at it sometimes, and we don't know who's going to be here and who's not. We just understand how the organization operates. So it's, to those guys, it's no big deal. I think it would be disappointing that you work so hard from the minute you arrive in spring training in February to know that you're probably not going to have a chance to keep your team together just because of the way the finances work. So I don't know. It's disappointing, but I understand that Eric Neander, that we don't know how he thinks, because they could be 5 games up in the wild card and they might have still made this move.
I think they try to be advantageous at every step of the way. If they see a deal that they like, they go and make the deal, and they really believe in the ability to develop players there. So they say, you know what, we love Randy. We understand he is, an all-star, a big leaguer that's had a ton of success, but we believe we can develop someone that can do it as well. So they really believe at the core that they're an organization that can develop talent, and they also think they can scout better than anybody else.
We've already seen Savali and now Arozarena go in the last several weeks. Fairbanks could be on the move. Paredes could be on the move. Eflin could be on the move. So just keep checking your phone. Oh, what are you drinking? Is that black coffee or something else?
It's black coffee.
Yeah, you're a dude.
I'm going to the gym right after this, Chris.
I love that. I will not.
I got my stuff on already.
Dylan Cease is a dude. He's a dude who finally got that no-hitter a couple of years after his now teammate Luis Arraez ended one with 2 outs in the 9th inning. Cease was not to be denied in our nation's capital.
Abrams to right field. Johnson coming in. He makes the catch. No hits for the Nats. Dylan Cease throws a no-hitter. The second no-hitter in Padres history. There'll be a sea of San Diegans celebrating back home today.
I just love that term, San Diegans. It sounds like a cool pet or something that I've got. Come here, my little group of San Diegans. I want to pet them.
I get a sea of San Diegans is great.
Yes. So this is awesome. Dylan Cease is one of those guys that every time you watch him pitch, you're like, he's got no hit shit. The only thing is he going to walk the world, and is his pitch count going to be at like 120 after 5 1/3? But he was able to keep it in check on Thursday and reach that holy grail, which I thought was awesome.
Yeah, I mean, he is one of the guys that you mentioned. When he steps on the field, he has a chance to do it because the stuff is so good. 3 walks yesterday, although I think he only faced 2 over the minimum because they threw somebody out on the base pass. I love it. And there was, the typical, there's a couple of plays during the no-hitter that had to be made. We had Bogarts was involved in both of them. We have the bobble by Bogarts, the Jackson Merrill's there to pick him up. And then Bogarts has another ground ball to his left, I believe. When was that, like the 7th inning? And he bobbles it, but somehow the bobble goes straight to his hand. He's able to catch it, throw, I believe it was Caballero Ruiz out at first base. So, some excellent stuff. And then afterwards, we got to hear about Schilt was thinking about taking him out in the 7th inning. And then Cease was like, no, I'm good. Give me a chance. And then Musgrove was there to offer his advice as well. So there was kind of like a lot of like internal drama during it, which that's like my favorite part about these no-hitters is learning about, okay, what was going down in the dugout. Then you see there's always the one play early in the game that, could have been a hit that wasn't a hit. So we definitely had that. And then this is just, for Dylan Cease to be able to do it after getting so close against the Twins a couple years ago, I think is awesome.
Yeah, and I loved it that Luis Arraez gave him the ball right at the end, and they hugged, and they had their little special moment. That was cool. Yeah, he could have come out easily after 94 pitches in the 7th, in part because you're probably thinking if you're Schilt, well, it's just going to get tougher in the 8th and 9th. It's not going to get easier, but he actually did a pretty good job of managing his pitch count those last 2 innings. So that part's awesome. Collectively, I don't think there's a hotter pitcher in the sport. 22 consecutive scoreless innings. He has allowed 7 hits in his last 40 starts, 38 strikeouts, just 8 walks in that span. He leads the league in strikeouts. My bigger question here is, let's remember, even though he didn't come directly in the Juan Soto trade, Drew Thorpe, who did come over in the Soto trade from New York, then got flipped to the south side of Chicago so they could get Dylan Cease. If they're able to extend Cease, does that make the Soto trade worthwhile?
We've talked about this before. It's so hard to put a value on the trade because, number one, look, CJ Abrams looks great. James Wood looks great out there. Mackenzie Gore has flashes of brilliance. But really, you have to think about it in terms of, okay, you got Juan Soto. He had a great 2023 for you, got you to the 22, CS, had a couple big homers in that series. Like, you have to think about that in terms, you have to think about the trade in terms like that. Like, what did it do for us at the big league level? Now, Michael King is also part of that. He's been fantastic for them. So yeah, if you end up with 2 like front of the rotation type starters, Like I think and Soto put a monstrous season for you and got you into the CS. Like there, you have to take all that into consideration. So, I still think it's probably too early to say who won or lost a trade. But my overall thought process on this, Chris, is who cares that you make a move at the big league level, and that's all that matters. You want, like, every organization, every fan base wants their GM, wants their front office to make these moves to get them further at the big league level. And sometimes it works out. You give up somebody and they stink, and you get the right guy. And sometimes it works out the opposite. But I think, by and large, you just want your front office to try to improve the best they can at the big level, and Preller tried to do that. So I don't think you can really look at it as, hey, we won or lost a trade. It's like we're making moves to try to get better, and we should be appreciative that we have a front office that operates that way. Look at the Rays.
Yeah, you're right. I agree with you. If they are able to extend both Cease and King from an outsider's perspective, I'm talking about people that are outside of the San Diego fan base, that will ease the Soto burden, because we both feel like he is going to end up in Cooperstown. And for him to be traded twice, the Nats, we look at it and we're like, okay, well, they got 3 huge pieces for that haul that can help them as tentpoles of the organization moving forward. If the Padres can get a couple out of it, then that eases the burden. My buddy Daniel Jeremiah, okay, over at NFL Network, there's not a bigger Padres fan that I know. He made the point that he was able to take his son to games where they beat the Dodgers in the divisional round, and then to go to the NLCS as well. And they didn't reach the World Series, but he says we have those memories together forever. And that's something that we totally forget about as outsiders. Like, it's not as emotional for us. So Juan Soto was a big part of creating memories for a lot of Padres fans. And this is an organization that's only been to a pair of World Series. It just doesn't happen very often. So there aren't that many family bonding. And it sounds cheesy, but it is part of it when you factor in the success of a trade. I think you honestly have to look at it that way.
I mean, yeah, it's a business. And what he's saying is exactly right. It's kind of what I was trying to say. Like, he went out and got Juan Soto. Like, that is a win in itself. Like, you went out and traded for a generational hitter. You went out and made those moves. Like, every franchise, every fan base is jealous when something like that happens. So, like, yeah, eventually they trade him. I think they probably did a right thing there too, because he wasn't going to sign an extension. So now you try to recoup some of what you gave away. Like, I think they've actually handled the Juan Soto trade like pretty well.
Hey, John Boy Media, iHeart Podcasts have teamed up. So you're probably wondering, Rose, what do you mean? We mean that 2 of your favorite John Boy Media shows can now be found over at the Dan Patrick Show, in addition to where you already watch or listen. We got Wake and Jake and Jimmy's 3 Things. They've joined the iHeart Podcast and the Dan Patrick Show family. And the best part, they will still continue to be the very same shows that you know and love. If you can't tell, we're super excited around here. Dan Patrick is a guy that even I grew up on watching and wanted to emulate in this business. And he has obviously built an entire media empire, and we are proud to be a part of it. And you know what? We have you to thank, because we can't do cool stuff like this if it wasn't for your support. We know you have a lot of choices. Thank you very much for backing us. And thank you to the Dan Patrick family for having us as part of the group. All right, we continue on. Garrett Crochet, we always felt like was going to be the biggest name perhaps that would move at the trade deadline. Sounds like that got a little more difficult. Jesse Rogers of ESPN Chicago is reporting that Crochet wants a contract extension from his new team if he's traded in order to pitch in the postseason this year. This is according to sources familiar with the situation. Crochet is also making it known that he wants to not pitch out of the bullpen. So don't think about that. He is citing health concerns for all of the above requests. What do you think of this?
I kind of think it's fascinating. At first glance, I'm like, how do you even come out and say that? How can you say you can't trade me unless this happens? Like, you can't do that. Like, you're going to get traded and you have no way to stop it. What, are you going to go and fake an injury? Like, I that doesn't really happen in Major League Baseball. And maybe that's a new like bargaining tool or leverage. Like, I understand where he's coming from, Chris. It's his first year starting. There's a lot of innings that he's throwing this year, and he wants to protect himself long term. He doesn't want to go to a team and then just feel like he's getting, run into the ground, and then all of a sudden, he comes up with an arm injury, and he's, his value is down. I understand that. I get that. And his agents are trying to protect him from that as well. But I just don't know how you demand these things. I don't know how you get into a clubhouse, you get traded over, and you make the playoffs, and all of a sudden you haven't been able to come to an extension. Then what, you're just going to sit out? Like, how is that going to go down in the clubhouse? That's going to be crazy. So like, all these things are happening. And for right now, it's just, they said something. Doesn't mean anything. Like, they have to follow through with it. He has to get traded, number one. Like, there's all these things that have to happen for it to come down to that. But I have mixed emotions about it. Honestly, I texted Ollie, my guy at CAA, and I asked him who Crochet's agents were, and he told me, and I said, man, it's like a ballsy move saying that stuff. It really is. So
I don't know if ballsy's the right word, dude.
I think it is. I think they're really trying to protect their client, who is in a very unique situation. We're starting to see it more and more, Chris, but over the history of the game, we haven't seen this a lot, where a reliever turns into a starter, becomes one of the biggest trade chips possible, and is trying to protect himself as he hasn't. How much time have we spent talking about what's going to happen to this guy as the innings get up there? How are they going to approach it? So we're aware of the situation. We understand that there is a possibility of fatigue and like just not being there ever in your life, pitching this many innings in a year. So he understands that as well. He wants a little bit of protection from it. So that's where they're coming from. From the player standpoint, if I'm on the team that trades for him, I don't know how I react to it. Like, I think I'd be pretty upset if the guy that we traded for and is one of our best pitchers all of a sudden says, hey man, I'm out for the playoffs. Like, that's just,
and on top of that,
it's crazy for me.
I don't think that's easy for Garrett Crochet. I mean, this is not, I guarantee you that Garrett Crochet did not come up with this plan. This was his agency that approached him and said, do you want a long-term deal? Yes, I do want a long-term deal. Okay, here's the best way for you to get it when you're still a couple of years away from free agency. You have a bargaining chip. Now, we are seeing this play out all over the NFL right now as training camps get started. There are certain guys who are what we call hold-ins. They are there. They are doing mental reps on the side, but they are not putting their body in harm's way until they get the extension that they're looking for. Some guys will cave. Some guys will see the team cave, and they'll get exactly what they're looking for finally. This is something where if you say, I'm going to go to a new team, I don't want to pitch out of the bullpen, that's fine. I mean, I understand that. But if we make it to October, I'm going to sit out. Garrett Crochet is on one of the worst teams I have ever seen. Not one of his starts this year has meant anything. So you're telling me that a guy who's an ultra competitor, who just made the All-Star team, who is just around some of the best players in the history of the sport, is now going to get a chance to finally sit at the dessert table, and he's going to frickin' order fruit? I'm sorry. That is not the way I'm going.
We know that. We know that's not how you're going at the dessert table. We understand that. Yeah, it just, it puts, and I agree with you. It was definitely I believe it was the agent's decision, and then Crochet has to agree to that, obviously. But he's in a very interesting position now, because you're right. Like, here's what I think could happen, Chris. Say this all goes down. And number one, he could go in and ask for an extension right now from the White Sox, and they'd give it to him, and it would make him even more tradable. People love cost control pieces. So I don't think he needed to say, hey, extend me. Like, he could have gotten traded, went to the new team right away and said, I want an extension, and they would have entertained it. Now, I don't know. Like, I get, like, the not pitching in the playoff thing is a bigger bargaining chip. So maybe you get more because, hey, we really want this guy to pitch in the playoffs, so let's get this thing done. A little bit more of an emphasis on the timing of it. But part of me thinks if he didn't get an extension done, he goes to a contender, they make the playoffs. Part of me thinks he's like, you know what? Screw it. I'm going to pitch. Like, all the boys are around you, and I'm not saying the guys are going to pressure him, because I believe a lot of players are going to respect and kind of like say, okay, okay, we see other sports doing this. Like you mentioned, like, we respect what you're doing. But I also think there'll be an immense amount of pressure on him.
Well, but also you've talked a ton, and I have backed you up on this based on the number of players I've talked to, that the number one thing is you work to feed your family, and people think it's about chasing a ring and everything else. that changes when you get to October, because now that you have a realistic shot, let's say he joined the Dodgers and he's going to sit out when you're around all of that talent. Like, I don't see that happening.
I don't see it either. And I will reemphasize that is the truth. Like, number one, you want to take care of your family no matter
Right.
what. I think if you offered anybody and said, hey, you're going to make the league minimum for 5 years and then that's it, but you're going to win a ring or even 2 rings, or you could not even make the playoffs and you make, $100 million, you're going to take the money. Like, that's the bottom line. I think anybody that tells you differently is lying. Maybe they want to seem like, hey, I'm the ultra competitor, which, if you're in the big leagues, you are an ultra competitor. You want to win rings. Everyone wants that, but I value my family more than that. That's just kind of like the bottom line.
Yeah, and that's fine. I do think, not that he got poor advice from his agency. I'm just curious how this leaked. I'm trying to figure out if it's somebody in the White Sox organization. How would that help them? I'm not so sure it would. Is it possible it came from an agent? It's possible, but I'll tell you this. This is the way I hope it plays out. First of all, I want to see him traded because he's a baller, and I want to see him pitch in October. I hope he gets his money because I always root for the players to get their money. So however it happens, I want him to get something that makes him happy. And then number 3, I hope he comes out and tells us the truth, which might go something like, hey, listen, my agents told me this. I did agree to go along with it. I didn't love that it got out in public because now people might see me in a different light. Like, it's okay. You can throw your agency under the bus. That's why you pay them. That is perfectly fine to do.
Gosh, we could talk about this forever because it's interesting. I think that the organization that trades for him will also be under a ton of pressure, because if they do this and they do give him an extension, it's only going to open up the doors for everybody to start doing this. And league wide, like, teams don't want this to come into baseball. We've seen it a little bit, Chris, with guys who have no trade clauses being able to say, this is what I want, because they have the power then. But a guy with no veto power whatsoever demanding things, that just hasn't happened in our sport yet. So I'm interested to see how the team that trades from handles this, because if they do it, like I said, it opens up a bag of worms.
We do have a trade that has happened during the show. The Phillies, we knew they were looking for some right-handed pop in the outfield.
Oh, wow.
They have picked up Austin Hayes from the Baltimore Orioles. They're sending Christian Pache packing back to Baltimore, and Sir Anthony Dominguez, who has not had a very good year. He was certainly reliable during their postseason run in recent seasons, but he is not, Baltimore is looking for more bullpen help. I don't know if this is going to be enough. And Austin Hayes is a guy that was fairly disposable.
Yeah, I like this for both teams. Obviously, Baltimore has a ton of depth with position players, and Philly looking for a bat. Austin Hayes can be that guy for them. And Sir Anthony's had spurts in the big leagues where he's been really good. I think he can find some things, whether that's, Baltimore just changing, mechanics, whatever it may be. And then Pache being a defense first guy out there in the outfield. I think this is good. I like that trade. I do a lot.
Yeah. I don't think it might be the last one for Philly in terms of the outfield. Austin Hayes has been okay this year. He hasn't done anything that has been eye-popping. He has been better in years past, but he's been pushed out there. I mean, we know that Orioles grow prospects on trees. As far as Dominguez, 36 innings pitched this year, an ERA of almost 5, a negative WAR. It has not been a good year for him. Maybe a change of scenery does him well. We'll see. The trade target I thought that Baltimore might go after in the bullpen is not available as of right now. Mason Miller ends up on the injured list. He has a fractured pinky on his non-throwing hand, and A's skipper Mark Kotze told us exactly how it went down. He gave us this quote before their game Thursday against the Angels. Mason's agent might have thought differently and made a statement of his own. How we do things in this organization is to tell the truth. And he said that Mason came into the training room, was going through his recovery. He was reminded that he had a post-game lift to get in. Out of a little frustration, he kind of pounded his fist on the padded training table out of emotions. Okay, let's start with this. He's going to be in a cast for a little while. He's still going to be able to throw some side sessions, is what I'm reading early next week. Would this prevent you from trading for him?
Why is he going to be in a cast?
I don't know, probably
Can't you
to
just like
immobilize the
splint
thing.
Can't you just splint these two fingers together, like create some sort of glove and just keep him throwing? Like, I don't think it should affect him that much. Maybe I don't know the extent of the break or where exactly it is. But
I
if
ain't a
it's in the pinky,
doctor.
I don't know. I'm not a doctor either. I'm just saying it's a pinky, bro. I
Okay.
don't know. What's the question?
Would you let's say that he's available for September and moving on. Would you still trade for him?
Yeah, dude.
I would too.
Of course, he still has 5 years of control after this.
Yeah.
Now, would it? Hey, a little bit of a cause for alarm. The guy's mad about getting a lift in. Like, what's up with that?
It
That's
read
one
weird.
thing. That did read weird. I really like to know exactly what went down, because I don't like how either side handled this, if I'm being honest. I think you should always tell the truth. So that's, I guess, Kotze, I'm on his side more than the other. But the agent coming out and putting out a statement, why would he do that? What's the point? What's up with these agents? Like, get out, like stay on the sidelines, guys.
No, it didn't make any sense. Did you what about what Kotze said by airing him out? Shouldn't he have let Mason tell the story of how it happened and let him be? I mean, Mark Kotze played an awfully long time in the big leagues. That's really up to a player, because that is an embarrassing situation. Let him be the one to tell it. Shouldn't Mark have just said, hey, listen, he had an incident and broke his pinky? You don't have to tell everybody. Just say he's out.
I think that's how they should have handled it. Both sides should have got together and said, yes, he had an incident, in the training room, and this would happen. But the problem is, beat reporters aren't going to let it lie at that. They're going to ask questions. Well, how did it happen? What was he doing?
Don't have to answer it.
You kind of do, because if you don't, then there's this cloud of secrecy, and then people want to poke even more. So either you lie and make something up, which happens all the time, or you just kind of tell the truth. How many people? Just this year we've had 2 other people punch things or kick things and get injured. So teams do tell the truth about stuff like this. I think it's weird that his agent came out and said what he said.
I also think it's weird that Kotze threw in. He probably could have done the story without the lift part of it. Like that, it's like he got upset because he had to do a post-game lift. Like, I don't know if we had to get in that much detail.
That's what I'm saying. That's not a great look for Mason Miller.
It's not. It's not. And it's embarrassing for him. And the one thing you don't want to do as a manager is embarrass your guys publicly these days. You just don't want to do it. So few guys do it.
I'm not in on how this whole situation was handled, and I respect Mark Kotze immensely. I got to play under him a little bit when I was in Oakland. I think he's a great guy, and he does a lot of things right. I don't think either side handled this correctly.
I covered Mark Kotze when he was in college. My first
hitter. He was like one of the best hitters ever in college, wasn't he?
Not only that, he was their closer. So he would come in from right field at the end of games and throw like 96, which back then was heat.
Still is heat. Gosh.
Now you're like, like our 7th best reliever throws 96. All right, we're going to do this one quickly. Lots of interesting series coming up this weekend. Braves and Mets actually started their 4-gamer last night. And here's the way the Mets SNY booth, the best one in baseball, according to some voters out there, called the extra inning win.
And he drives one to right field over toward the line. Long run for Laureano, and he overruns it. And the Mets win the ball game. Laureano ran too far. Coming home to score is Iglesias, and the Mets win it in 10, 3-2.
That was a rough night for Ramon Laureano. Not only that play, but there was some botched suicide squeeze that Brian Snitker had no idea what happened. Kelnick either didn't get a bunt down or there was miscommunication or whatever, and he got run out in between third and home, so that was rough. But a ton of interesting series. You got that one. You got Yanks, Sox, Guardians, Phillies, top 2 teams in baseball. Who knew? Pirates, D-backs, Dodgers, Astros, something else. Just give me 30 seconds on this.
If you ask me this question over the next 2 weeks, I'm going to say whatever team the Pirates are playing. I just think they have a fascinating schedule opening up. They're playing a bunch of teams right ahead of them in the wild card. Plus, they need to prove to the front office to add. I think they're in a position to do it, and they have the teams right in front of them. So I love this series against the Diamondbacks.
Astros and Dodgers, the 2 Western Division leaders. Now that the Astros have caught the Mariners and now leapfrogged them. And the Dodgers have played exceptionally well since the break, right? They swept the Red Sox. They took 3 of 4 from the Giants. They're getting some pitching back. Clayton Kershaw threw 4 innings in his season debut on Thursday. So that'll certainly be one worth watching. I think they're all a bunch of good series. I can't wait to talk about that and the trade deadline on Monday. All right. It is time right now for our Booking.com question of the week. You know all about Booking.com. You still have time to book that vacation. And, of course, the right stay can make you a fan of any U.S. city out there. So why don't you go do something about it? Go see your favorite baseball team. You can go to your arch rival city, because today's episode of Baseball Today is brought to you, indeed, by Booking.com. Booking.yeah. Still have time to book that hotel, that bed and breakfast, that vacation rental, that resort, and so much more on Booking.com. You might just find the perfect stay, yes, even in your baseball rival city. So even if you think, oh, there's no way I would go infiltrate a city where I can't stand the fan base and I hate that team, well, then you hop on Booking.com and you might find that perfect hotel that overlooks your rival's stadium and be like, I'm going in early August. I'm taking the whole family. We're going to go watch our team kick their butts in their stadium, and I can't wait. So the right stay can make you a fan of any U.S. city. Yeah, even your rivals. Book today on Booking.com, an official accommodation partner of Major League Baseball. Do it on the site or in the Booking.com app today. And so our Booking.com question of the week, pretty good one. Big Blue Brooklyn said if Major League Baseball allowed all draft picks to be traded again with the competitive balance pick trade rules apply, do you think there would be more deals at the deadline? Would it be bigger, splashier, or stay roughly the same?
I definitely think it would be bigger and splashier, if you will, because we talk about trades all the time. It takes 2 to tango. So if you don't have what an organization likes as far as prospects, draft picks would be sufficient to a lot of these teams as well. So I think it would make a ton of sense. I'm not sure why they don't trade draft picks. I don't know if there was something that happened. I guess maybe I should know that, but in my mind, I have no idea why draft picks can't be traded. It doesn't really make any sense. It happens in every other sport. So I actually would like to see this happen. I'd be very interested to see, the outcome of it, but I think it would, to answer your question, make it much bigger and splashier, Chris.
Yeah. As Big Blue Brooklyn did point out, the competitive balance picks can be, they can be moved right now. In fact, I think Drew Waters
that's new.
Yeah. Drew Waters was traded recently. I think maybe was that last year or whatever for competitive balance picks. I don't get it. It would make draft night so much more fun too, to be honest with you. Like, what would happen if in the middle of the draft, one of these kids gets drafted and all of a sudden he gets traded, or the pick gets traded right before being made and there's a new logo? Like, that is the best part about covering the NFL draft, when all of a sudden there's a huge trade and behind the commissioner a new logo appears. Trades are fun, man. Like, they are a blast. So I don't understand it. It doesn't make sense. It sounds like it's an old archaic rule that they just haven't moved on from.
Yeah, Dan wrote in the chat, it was from 1965. They just from the inception
of
the draft
started.
They had decided to not do it. So yeah, I mean, there are some things that baseball could really kind of up the ante with, and this would be one of them. Like, there's no real reason in my mind where I could say, why wouldn't this happen?
Now, you can very quickly, you can have some parameters here. Like in the NBA, you cannot trade your first round pick in consecutive years. That was actually something that was created because the Cleveland Cavaliers in the early 80s had a terrible owner named Ted Stepien who kept trading away the first pick every year, including one year. It ended up going out to the Los Angeles Lakers, who ended up drafting James Worthy. So they did it to kind of protect the owners from themselves there. So if you want to put in that you can't trade your first round pick in consecutive years, fine. I'm good with that stuff. But let's make this available. Let's make it more fun for the fans. You're looking for more reasons to make this sport fun. Here's one.
You also can't trade people the first year that they're in an organization. I guess that's just an extension of this rule.
Yeah, so. Remember Dansby Swanson was the first pick by Arizona, and then he got traded. What was
the day after? I thought it was the day
Yeah.
after the season ended, or the day after he could get traded. It was very
Right,
close. to
right.
that.
Yep, exactly. All right, listen, it's going to be a fun weekend. Hopefully there's some more names traded, and we will have great reaction on Monday, Tuesday here at John Boy Media. We're going to be all over the trade deadline. We cannot wait. So for our one-of-a-kind producer, Dan Rourke, our amazing intern, Tommy Young, that is the uber-talented Trevor Plouffe. I am Chris Rose. We will see you Monday on Baseball Today, presented to you by Booking.com.